Hello, me lovelies. Hello, Kelsey. See you there. Ready to go in the chat, my moderator, Kelsey. So just wait for a few people to jump on. And what I'll see if Diane's all right.
Craig said he was going to try and troll it tonight if he had time.
Who is? Craig?
Yeah.
Oh, very well. Very well.
No,
so hopefully we'll wait for her if she has any trouble. So if Diane is listening, if you have any trouble, just let me know in the live comments and I'll put that link out live just for you to get onto it. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to this talk because it's absolutely historic in my mind what Louise Casey has said about the Met Police, and I think it's needed to be said, but we'll talk all about that. Are you fighting Irish, hello? So we'll find I'll just let a few people jump on. So anyway, Craigie, right? Craigie, Video Craig. Now, see where it said video? Do you know where they say video? I picked this up in a country when I was 17, video. And that stuck in my mind. So where do you think, which country says video for video?
No clue.
Video? I've never heard anyone say that.
Video. Japan. It just stuck in my mind. They sort of get Western words, but they put a little lilt on it. It's so cute. But I always, Diane. Okay, darling. Yeah, video. Oh, it always stuck in my mind, that one bit thing. But I was waiting for people to jump on. I'll just give a little thing. I tried to learn Japanese, right? Oh my God. No chance. So I always admire Japanese people who can speak English because it's just a completely alien language. So in the West, anything we speak, and everything sounds the same when they're talking because they use a lot of words that don't actually mean anything, but have to be in the sentence. It's like, wow. But I really do wish I could have learned it because I would have loved to live for a while.
Have you been watching the Gwyneth Paltrow trial?
Bits of it. I know it's been bizarre.
What did you make of him today?
I didn't see it today.
Wow. But well, he's got in and done his testimony today.
Is this Elton John?
No, this is Gwyneth Paltrow against the guy who basically was, there was a collision on the ski slope between this guy and Gwyneth Paltrow, and he's taken her to court, suing her for damages to himself. He's saying that his life's been affected, and he's had to give up his relationship. He's never been the same since, and it's absolutely bonkers. And she's suing him, but for the tune of $1 plus legal fees. Saying that he's trying to sue her to just to get money off her. It's absolutely crazy. But listening to him today, he's I don't believe a word he's saying.
Well, they said that in his Batty, but it's bizarre the way it's going on. Like the thing where the woman was interviewing, I don't know what side she was on. Oh, how tall are you? Oh, I'm just under 5'10". Oh my God, I'm so jealous. If that happened in a British courtroom, it wouldn't be allowed for a defense or prosecution to talk like that at all. It was just bizarre. It's like kissing up to her because she's a celebrity. But I suppose it's entertainment for people. But yeah, totally bizarre. And can she give the how are you, Mart, sweetheart? Can she give the wasn't it the security sweets and treats? It's like, no.
Unbelievable.
It is.
Only in America.
I know. If that ever happened in England, it wouldn't be allowed in England because the judge would see it as being, disrespectful to the court. Because what's like here, everything's all pomp and ceremony, and you have to respect the court all the time. You can't talk out of hand, which I used to always warn people. When you go into the court, no matter what, kiss the butt of the magistrate or the judge, because they're the ones that you need to be on side with. And how many people ignored that advice and then didn't get what they wanted.
I've never been in a courtroom in my life.
Oh, it's like with the police, right? There's no point going to the police with a big attitude. And I used to warn members of the public when they were going to kick off, and I'd understand why they were kicking off, because they were frustrated they hadn't been given the right service. And their lives are being affected by it. And I used to warn them and say, look, I'm going to get you an inspector or I'll get you a chief superintendent. Please, please, please do it respectfully and do it with a smile on your face, no matter how angry you feel, because then you've got a chance of getting what you want. But I said, come at them with attitude and said, you're not going to get it. And it worked every time. When they'd be, oh, yes, sir, and I hate to trouble you, but it's horrible that a member of the public has to do that. But if it gets what you want, that's what you do. That's what I said.
True.
But you just have to see what's going on. So, Diane, what's going on?
Well, Elton John's been given evidence today, hasn't he? In the News of the World thing.
Oh, has he?
Yeah, this afternoon, I'm sure I've seen.
Daily Mail. Was it the Daily Mail?
Yeah, Daily Mail, sorry, yeah.
Was Prince Harry there as well?
Yes, but I don't know when he gives evidence. I don't know if it was today, but it showed you pictures of Elton John leaving court.
Yeah, right, okay. Yeah. So is this like phone tapping or something like that?
Yeah,
right,
all the underhand techniques.
Yeah, it's been gone on for years. It's gone on for years. I mean, that's how a lot of these stories got out. I mean, Piers Morgan was probably one of the biggest culprits, and he got away with it. He was the one who deleted that poor young girl's voicemails on her phone when she was murdered. A lot of people think he should have gone to prison for that, but yeah, I mean, there was huge trials, and there was a few scapegoats, a few people locked up, and a couple of people got away.
Well, here's Diane. I made up Diane's come on because Diane's never been. I've been on one of your lives, haven't I, Diane? But, absolutely great. And to introduce Diane to the rest of the panel.
Hi, Diane.
Hi, Steve.
Me and Diane didn't start off on the best of tracks, did we, in the past? I won't go in about it, but we did start off as the best of friends, let's put it this way. But
not really.
We started talking, and I know Diane will have a good, brilliant input into all this, what's going on with the police, because you've had experience of things not being quite nice in your life, haven't you, Diane, which you've survived. So, Diane will have a good. And we have Chrissie, who is Mrs. Video Craig. And we have Steve as well, Steve Wraith. So what we're talking about today is Baroness Louise Casey's report and findings into misogyny, sexism, homophobia, racism, a lot in the Met Police. Now, when I first heard this report was being done, nearly 60, I thought, here we go again. Another waste of time. It's going to be nothing, blah, 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 blah. We had to roll with Stephen Lawrence a lot of it, and it never got anywhere. Well, she absolutely shocked everyone because she just said it as it was, as people have known it has been, and she didn't gloss her words, and she pointed fingers where fingers needed to be pointed and said, this is the problem. So that's why I'm doing this today, because I think it's a historic report. We'll discuss whether it's actually going to lead to anything, because we don't know whether it will do or not, but something definitely needs doing. And I'll also ask people for their personal experience, if they've ever had experience. I'll give you my experience, which was recently of the Met Police, where I walked away accusing them outright of being bigots and being so bigoted that it was institutional, and suddenly a year on, it's confirmed in this report that I was right in saying that. But it's interesting how they responded when I accused them of being institutionally bigoted. But anyway, which I don't make that lightly. I don't make that accusation lightly, but they are very, very bigoted. The Met, they're the worst in the country. Now, what I'm going to do, I was saying, Dan, I'm going to read out so people in the chat will know what I'm referring to in case you haven't read this report, and we'll discuss each part of the report as I'll stop at the part. So I'll start reading it. Here we are.
No.
Now, what it is, Baroness Louise Casey was asked to do this report on them. And here we are, straight away in this piece I'm reading, it says, here we all are again. What I was just saying about, we've had this before, and yet again, we're in the same place discussing how to solve this, which is corruption in the Met. And it goes, the venues change as do the decades. The people who chair the inquiry differ, as does the Metropolitan Police Commissioner vowing to act, which is nothing. Each one's, I'm going to change this. Never does. About a quarter of a century ago, in a cake box pink building in South London, where he held hearings, the evidence he heard, let's say, William McPherson, very intelligent, important man, to conclude that the Met was institutionally racist. The former judge concluded this, at least in part, explained why the killers of Stephen Lawrence had escaped justice, and that, which this is mentioned, led on to the creation of what was then the IPCC, the police watchdog, which became the IOPC, and it was Labour that created that, and that was set up not to work, and it's staffed not to work, but I'll go into that later, where it's just a whitewashing system. It doesn't actually do anything. It's not safe to go there. And then it said, this time it's even worse. The Met is again found to be institutionally racist, sexist and homophobic. And Louise Casey says it should also accept the findings of an early inquiry in 2021 that it is institutionally corrupt. So I can't express just how important Louise Casey's findings are here. She really did not hold back. And it's saying it may be an understatement to say this is a cataclysmic disaster, and it is an understatement, that has befallen the Metropolitan Police, the people it serves, the trust it squandered, and the bullied and overworked staff repeated leaders have let down. And I'll go on about the bullying. Know it firsthand had to happen to me when you actually speak out or highlight that there's bigotry going on in any force. But anyway, what I want to do, get back to you. So that's the background. Basically, she said, no, you are institutionally corrupt, whatever. As McPherson found out so many years ago, and let's just remind you, the Met Police was created in 1829 by the Police and Bill. And it's still corrupt. It's never been solved. It's still the way it was. It's over those, well over a century. It's still been getting accused of being corrupt and failings. So I'll start with you, Chrissie. What are your thoughts on actually her findings?
I mean, I can't imagine that she's found something and lied about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, what end has she got to tell lies? But the problem is what things need to be put in place to stop. Do you know what I mean? That's the next option, isn't it? Like, yeah. How can you in jobs like that? You will always attract, because of the power you're given over other people, you will always attract bullies of some form. But it's how you deal with it and how you weed them out, or what things you put in place. Like in accountancy, there's loads of regulations in place to stop you from stealing other people's money. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't remove the money from the company I work for without the authorization of, do you know what I mean? Like, it's what needs to happen, or what's in place now that doesn't work. Like, they need to look at the procedures, because one of the things I read about was like just simple things like they were claiming expenses for like iPads and in the police force and things like that, and taking the money out of it that could be used elsewhere to help other things. But I mean, then you boil down to, is money one of the biggest factors in why the police force is the way it is? Does it need more money? Does it?
Well, I'll give my opinion on that about money, because I've had this saying, because I was still in the police when the cut starts happening, and I had said something, which police, about the Ben Hogan out at the time. No, it wasn't Ben Hogan out. It was another one. And I said about these cuts, and he didn't like what I said, but I'll say that later about just what effect these cuts are having. So anyway, Dan, you're next in line. So what were your views on hearing that?
I think it's disgusting, really, but I'm not surprised, because I know about Northumbria Police and what they've been up to and stuff, so I'm not surprised. It's all over in UK really. I think it needs like a good wipeout from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. But what you're saying there is important. We seem to focus in on the Met, but the Met isn't the only one. I think every single force in the land has got issues with corruption and with how it deals with racism and whatever. Some are better than the others. And I'll say now, the Merseyside police, which I'm shocked to say because they caused me so much damage, now are much better than most. West Yorkshire police don't even go there. They are so, I've always said, it's not so much, it's a bad thing when you're corrupt or you're bigoted or whatever because you're that way inclined. But when it's because you're just thick, it's another thing. And they are the most incompetent force in the country as far as I'm concerned. But passing on to you, Steve, what's your thoughts on hearing that Louise Casey just lambasted them?
I mean, look, Louise Casey, the report was commissioned by the Met after that Sarah Everard abduction. And you've got to ask yourself, really, why was it, that an incident like that had to take place before, this kind of report was commissioned? It's a 363-page report is what I know. Obviously, there's some very disturbing stories within it about sexual assaults. Many of them have been covered up, downplayed. I think 12% of the women who work within the Met have been or claim to have been harassed or attacked at work, with about a third of them experience sexism. So, that in itself, that their own members, their own staff are actually reporting sexual harassment at work is damning enough. But it's a knock-on effect of the world we live in, the politics, the political situation that we're in. The Met will point to the fact that they've had, I think it's something in the region of £700 million worth of cuts over the last few years, and that's led to the force becoming inadequate. I think a recent survey suggested that there was 50% of the public, had confidence in the Met Police. That's awful when you think that we're supposed to be relying on these people for law and order, and we're supposed to be relying on them to keep the streets safe. Yet the public only got 50% confidence. It's frightening, and this is just the Met. This is the Met Police that we're talking about with her particular survey. Be interesting if she did a survey of all of the forces up and down the country. I think Sir Mark Rowley's got a hell of a job on his hands,
which she said he failed at.
He missed the opportunity. Yeah. I've watched him a couple of times describing the Met, the Met Police as, he accepts that there's racism, misogyny, homophobia, and he says it's institutional. He's accepted all of that. Coming out with phrases, akin to Rome wasn't built in a day, and there's a lot to get right, and we'll change things. But words are cheap; it's action that people are looking for. And the mayor's culpable as well. Sadiq Khan has been in that position for many years now. And he just comes out with rhetoric like backing up Louise Casey's findings, saying that the evidence is damning, and
nothing happens. That's it.
Nothing ever happens. Nothing ever happens.
That's the politics side, isn't it? Everything's like, what's to blame? Nobody cares what's to blame. We all know what happened. Like, what we're going to do to fix it. Like, what can we do to get the police to be? Do they need more money? Does the system need change?
Well, I just want to say about this money thing, because this comes up all the time, right? Money. I'm sorry. Lack of money doesn't make you misogynistic. It doesn't make you racist. It doesn't make you homophobic. It just doesn't. And I remember when the cuts were coming in at Merseyside Police, and I said, not one officer has to lose the job. Nothing has to be done. I said, all that you have to do is cut back on the senior officers being absolutely ridiculous with the spending the money. What they do, and this still goes on, right? And you have things now called area commanders. Area commander is a totally pointless position. It's just a chief superintendent by another name that's on higher wages, but chief superintendents do that. Now at Merseyside, we had in Liverpool South alone, I think it was 7 chief superintendents, 1 area commander. They were all lazy, focus the ones. And when one would move into the job and do the office, the whole office would be stripped out, redecorated in their design. And there's one kickoff because it got into the newspaper because one of them, I won't name him, no point naming him, and he actually got this in Admiral Street, got his room done. I want it done like this, all panel and everything, and his chairs cost thousands. Then he remembered he had a bad back and couldn't walk upstairs. So they had to go to a downstairs one and redo that. So that phase, he remembered he had a bad back after it was all done. Also, you have the chiefs with their expensive cars and the chauffeurs and all this business. They spend a ton. And another thing that was done, remember, at May's side, which was going on in every force, they put on this absolutely stupid thing at headquarters just to decide on how the inquiry officers should be updated. And they actually got a professional sign, huge professional sign done called The Dragons, which was a mock-up of these people were sitting on a panel and were going to decide who was going to get the contract to do these inquiry officers. We knew who was doing the contract. It was decided beforehand. It was a pass on the back thing. That costs hundreds and hundreds of pounds to do. So money is not an issue. And I've always said that money does not make.
No, it just needs spent properly. It needs.
They need to spend it. They need to stop faffing about and, as they creating useless posts like area commanders, which you don't need. They need to cut back on spending. They'll get a chair, which you could get from IKEA for £20. They'll only go to one supplier and it will cost them like £180.
Well, this is
identical.
Because it's a not-for-run, it's not for profit. People don't tend to look at efficiencies in any, like, where should we go shopping for this, or where should we go, or should we go out to tender for this work to be done?
Yeah.
And then it means you're spending the money that could be spent elsewhere on looking for employing more police officers. But the problem is now is because the way it's got, well, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't apply for a job in the police because of the restraints and public opinion of it. Do you know what I mean? You're then under so much scrutiny while you're doing that job that, like, can you possibly do the job properly to the fullest of its ability? I mean, a lot of people do, but then is it worth the stress you're going to put yourself under to be that?
Well, it's always been a stressful job, and that's what I say. I'll always say that it's a horrendously stressful job because you're dealing with, and I used to have that, dealing with people with really high emotions and mental illness. You're dealing with everything, and it can be extremely stressful. And thing that doesn't happen is one person just doesn't walk in the door, then you deal with them, they walk out, then someone walks in, and then you deal with them. You're having to deal with like 5-6 people at the same time and deal with things coming in on. It's just absolutely mind-blowing, the stress. So police officers and police staff are under a hell of a lot of stress. And I'd say to anyone, don't go in there if you've got mental health issues, because it will just amplify them 100-fold with the stress that you'll be put under. But anyway, to get more feedback on this, anything you want to say, Diane, in regard to like money, or what you think could be a root of what's going on here, if there's any excuse they could use for this?
No excuse at all. It's historic, isn't it? It's just been allowed to go. They've just been allowed to go with it for so long that it's just normal to them.
Yeah.
I know I've lost
Hasn't he tried to argue that it's not institutionalized as one of his points?
It is institutionalized, and I tell you why it is institutionalized, and people get confused about this. They think they're saying that they're all going around see Carlin behind the scenes. It's not. What it is, and this is where I found it, I say when I was working with the police, you turn around and you say, look, I'm concerned about the way I'm being treated here. You know, when you're getting officers coming in and you can't do your job and you're just getting absolutely insult after insult after insult, and you have like 6 officers, because also they become gang members and they always have an alpha male or an alpha female. And if they decide they don't like someone, they all gang up on that person to stay in with the alpha. And it doesn't happen in every block or every section. It doesn't. It's just certain ones. And if you turn around and you say, look, I want to move, which was the mistake I made. I said, don't want to make complaints. I said, just please move me, because this is getting to the point where I'm getting really ill and I don't want to come into work. Because I said, I'm here to work. I said, not here to have a whole gaggle of officers coming in. I said, and reminding me again and again and again that I'm different. I said, I just don't need that going on. Because I said that, little did I know at the time, my supervision thought, if I put a report in, that meant he'd failed in his job. He wasn't doing this job. But it goes right up to the top. Bernard Hogan Howe was the big chief then. They all think they will never admit to any kind of bigotry going on within the forces. They won't do it. You get hammered, absolutely hammered. That is institutional, because what happens is it's the system itself that is doing it. Yeah. And that means institutional, because they're covering it up, because every one of them want to be the next commissioner of the Met, because that's the highest one. And they need to go back. I had a very telling, I was at a meeting, and it was with Helen King. Helen King's working in universities now, but she used to be like the police officer that would go out on the LGBTQI, floats and all this. Oh, look, we police love you, pink people. We police love you, pink people. I sat in a room, and how I didn't walk out and discuss it, I don't know. And she turned around and said, look, that we need to get to the Home Office, because we haven't got enough, we haven't got enough gay men joining the force, and the Home Office will be wondering why we haven't got enough gay men. And she said, do you think we could write to email each officer and ask them if they could get the word she used, confess to being gay, but privately, and we won't tell anyone, so we can take them out and say, oh, this person's gay, know the numbers. And I just looked at it, and I said, but just let me finish what I was saying. And I thought, have I heard this? She's saying to confess so she can get the numbers and give them to the Home Office. And I said, wouldn't it be Mom said, wouldn't it be a better idea if you actually wondered why gay men are not staying in the force? The general rule was, if someone lasted 2 years and they were gay and a male in that force, it was long term. They'd been there long term, because they just walk out and go somewhere else. It was like a turnstile. And she just went, no, that's... And she wouldn't address it. And I said, well, you have got bullying going on. I said, I've seen it. I said, I've witnessed it. And I said, there's attitudes like you that do that. But that's the attitude, and that's why it's institutional. It was just like, so they were terrified of ever getting out there that you were homophobic or racist or whatever. So the victim will be bullied, and that's what makes it institutional. But Steve, have you got anything to say on this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other thing, playing devil's advocate a little bit, is that not all of the Met Police are bad. And I did read an article which, was by the chairman of the Metropolitan Police Federation, Ken Marsh. He was talking about the changes that have been implicated in the last 7 or 8 months, and he said, things are changing. He said, but it's a gradual change, and I think he took umbrage at the fact that the way that some of the media are writing stuff is, to suggest that that there's going to be another David Carrick or Wayne Couzens in the Met Police. And I mean,
there will be.
Look, there could be, but I think the way he looked at it was, he said, I don't think we'll see another person like that in the police. That's his opinion. He said, we absolutely accept the findings. I'm just quoting him here now. He says, but we have to be a little bit careful here. He says, are we saying every Met police officer is racist and homophobic? He says, if we are, then that's quite different. He said, a lot of police officers are leaving in their droves. And he says, it's quite scary what we're creating here. He says, the punish of the police just doesn't stop. The new commission has made a vow to change what's going on, and it is changing, and is changing what is going on. And he says, we've had 8 months of change. He says, but without police, you don't have society. You have a lawless society. And he says, I'll stand up for the hundreds of colleagues who don't behave this way and find it abhorrent that they are accused.
Steve, they always talk. The thing is that they always do this, and that's where they go wrong. They go wrong, and that's basically a beacon saying nothing's going to change. It's going to carry on when they say that. It's like one thing I always take umbrage to. It's when people are talking about, corrupt officers or corruption in social services, and someone you can guarantee will always pipe up and go, oh, they're not all bad. We've got to remember they're not all bad, and you'll hear this. As I say, what that does is that turns around and gives people the excuse to say, But what you do is you totally forget about the bad ones now, because there's some good ones, and that's what he's doing. It's not about, they're not talking about whether there's good ones. Yeah, of course there's good people there. They're not talking about that. They're talking about the bad ones, and that's the issue. So for him to go on like that, it's just deflecting. Do I have any sympathy for the police? For what's going on? Of course, the individual officer do, but not somewhat at his rank, because it's people. This is what people don't address either. Look, I've always said, you don't get saints promoted in hell, and like promotes like. So basically, to get to the top of that tree, if the institution is racist and is homophobic and is bullying and corrupt, you're not going to get to the top of that tree or anywhere near it unless you prove that you're likewise. So they're all rank. Once you get up, I always said, once you get past chief inspector, every goddamn one of them are involved in the cover-ups. Seen it myself. They're keeping people quiet, putting pressure on. Everyone under them is pressured to keep it down because they don't want them getting in trouble and being told that they're incompetent, because we'll stop them climbing up the ladder. It's horrendously corrupt the way to do it. It's like, and I don't mean to insult your ear, Steve, if you imagine a huge Masonic lodge, but on a grand, huge stage where everyone's sort of like patting everyone else on the back, that's the way it is. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
I know 5 police officers, and they're all part of the LGBTQ community. And they're not as high up as you're suggesting, but they all have moved throughout the ranks, and they're not, like, I don't know what the layers are, but they're not lower level police officers anymore.
Yeah, but the problem is, right, when I was going through what I went through, and when I told you the turnstile 2-year period with the Merseyside police, guess what? We had a lesbian and gay support network. We had a lesbian woman, I won't name her, but I've named her in the past, who was going round. And when I got my paperwork back, this will tell you something, she was a lesbian, right? I pointed out, I asked for the paperwork back, and this will tell you a lot. This is why I'm sharing with people. They'd had a secret meeting about me speaking out about the bigotry and the bullying going on, and about cover-ups of people who shouldn't be allowed near children, right? They had a private meeting, and by accident, the professional standards gave me the paperwork in a bundle. I wasn't meant to get that paperwork. Once I got it, my head nearly exploded. In that paperwork, this lesbian officer who was supposed to be helping everyone turned around and said, you get these words, this could compromise the situation for all of us. In that room was Helen King, who I've just mentioned. Another one, I can't remember her now, who was the highest ranking black officer, went on to the Met. They were all in that room, and the whole purpose, as that line showed, was to cover up what was being said and to shut up what was being said. And that was a lesbian. So having a lesbian in there, having a gay person, intersex person, having a black person in there at high rank proves nothing. Because what they'll do is they'll get promoted there, and they'll be the ones that'll be like, oh, look at me, look. I can't be racist. Look at me, I can't be sex. I've seen it all before. Can't be homophobic. Look, I'm here. When they're getting the wads of money into the into the bank account. And that's the ugly truth about it. So I never look at it. I don't care whether they're gay or not, or black or not, or whatever they are. That doesn't prove to me that they're not institutionally racist. But Diane, you look like you're eager to say something there.
No, sorry, it was just from me children in the kitchen.
Oh, I thought you were hung on every word I was saying and we're going to come back at me.
I think if there's going to be a review of the police, though, there should be a review of the police, across the board. I don't think it's right having the review of the Met Police, despite the fact that there's clearly a big issue within their force. But you do a review, surely, of your police force in general, because we're all one country. Fair enough. There's different police authorities. We mentioned Northumbria Police. You've got Merseyside Police. You've got the Met. But surely across the board, that's the government's job. That's the Home Office's job to get things in order and do these examinations. Do a report of each and every one. I mean, why just the Met's malfunctioning. They're talking about disbanding the Met and starting up something separate, an organisation, as you said, that's been ongoing since the 1800s. So, but why not focus on getting policing right across the UK and doing it properly and not starting from scratch, just sorting things out and getting an understanding of how people feel. And again, it comes back down to politics that we've discussed, but some people say, there's been lack of investment, but we had that ludicrous situation where there was, X amount of officers taken off the beat. And then, then the government put those police officers back on the beat, but then try to claim that we've been given an extra 20,000 officers. Well, we haven't. We've just put 20,000 officers back in the one that we took away. So, it's all about money. It's all about finance. We've had COVID in the middle of all of this, and we've had Brexit, and it's just, it really is just it is a mess, Anne. But I just think you review the police as a whole across the board, because what happens in London tends to happen in Manchester 5 or 6 years later, and then hits Newcastle 10 years later. And so it's who's to say there isn't? Well, we've had a rogue police officer or two up in the northeast who has gone on to committing a sexual offence or whatever, take advantage. He was locked up. I believe he committed rape, and he was he ended up in prison. So we've had that up here. So that's at Northumbria Police's doorstep. So I guess all of these police authorities would probably welcome it and welcome change, because as that guy who represents the union for the Met has said, we're not all bad coppers, and that's true, but
but it's not, as say, until they start talking, it's not about, everyone knows there's good coppers there, but as say, that's a deflection, and it's so disheartening when they start turning on that, because what they're doing, they deflect and say, and they're not going to look at the right at the problem, and it's not going to be solved when they say things like that. Anyway, Steve, who's this Steve rating his magic hands?
Well, I've got no idea, but they've got a sense of humour. It's changed from Diane's name to mine now.
Well, they're saying nice things, so they can stay there. Oh, here we go. Wait a minute. I just have to mention this fella, right? Oh, nice. Here we go. Big up the police. I reviewed the police in 1978. Oh, here we go. He's always serious, isn't it? Anyway, you want to get onto my... You want to get on...
love a bit of karma.
Oh, it gets better, Chrissy. It gets better, Dan. It gets better, Steve, right? Karma, you need to look at my community post, because last night I did a poll asking who I should go out on a romantic date with, and you won. So put the specifications of where we're going, what type of place you want to go to. So make sure you've got your purse ready with your pennies, because we're going out on a romantic date.
He's a real man. He's got a wallet, and he's got a wallet, not a purse.
He's got one of those little purses where they come out like to stretch out like that, and he's going to do this. Remember,
he's got a bum bag, really, Anne, hasn't he? He's got one of them bum bags.
When they're checking the money like that. Turning the back. Men used to do that years ago. You'd see them like that, so you wouldn't see.
So, Anne, are you gonna take part in a backstreet brawl at any point? Oh, you've took your headphones off.
See, he's distracting me. Other boys distracted me.
I'm saying that, Anna, you're getting all flustered now, thinking of you.
I am. That's it. Once Karma Corner comes on, that's it. The heart starts pounding. It does. Don't you dare! I'm not even putting that up. He's getting rude now. He's getting absolutely rude now.
Are you going to be taking part in a backstreet backyard brawl, Anne, at any point?
Oh, I will do. I told Danny Christie I'd take him on. But
is that because there's cuddling involved?
No.
No,
don't get Karma in. Don't get Karma all jealous.
Excited.
No, what it is, I said we should do an LGBTQI version of it, and so it's going to be in 6-inch heels, and instead of gloves, we hit each other with handbags. And so, if he's up for it, because I'll win that, he's not going to be used to walking around in 6-inch heels. I've done that in the past. My God, my job was going up basically on my tippy toes for long enough.
God, I can't even walk in them.
I tell you now, I'll flatten him. Get him in. This is it. They think the big tough men. Diane, Chrissy, if you've ever done 6-inch heels, they think the tough men. No. Aren't they killers? Tell you
I've
what,
got
Steve.
arthritis in my toes. I couldn't even get my toes to bend to that position. I mean, Video Craig's feet can bend to that. Toes can bend to that position. He'll fight you for Jenny Christie.
I dare say they can. But I tell you now, Steve, here's a bit of advice for you. If you want to build up your calf muscles, and I mean really build them up, start walking around the house in 6-inch heels. My God, they'll firm up your calf muscles.
I think I'm happy with me calf muscles as they are, and I don't think I'll be starting to do that.
I know. I think your wife would be a bit surprised if she walked in seeing your body.
I think so, yeah.
Anyway, we sort of got off the subject. But anyway, Chrissie, what do you think basically is the, I wouldn't say solution to it, because I don't think there is a solution, but is there anything I've said, because I can be very vocal on it and say things like, no, we shouldn't start deflecting by saying there's good police officers. We know there are. How do you think you balance this by, do you just go like Louise Casey did, right for the kill? Or
you've got it right though. There should be a balance though. Like, so Steve's right and you're right. That there is good police officers. It should be encouraged that there is, and there should be things in place to recognise better good police officers, therefore giving the bad police officers a wake-up call and think, why am I actually in this job? I would hate to be in my job and someone think, oh, she's shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to be recognised because I'm good at my job. I don't want to be recognised because I'm shit at it. Likewise, then there needs to be better checks in place for people, like even before the job, during the job, after the job. Like, is there proper appraisals? There mustn't be. Like, all these two, the guy that killed whatchamacallit Everard, what things were missed in them examples?
Cousins,
what did we miss there, so that next time we don't miss them sorts of things? Like, there needs, like, did he pass psych evaluations? Did he trick the system? Or they're just sheer flukes, and sadly, will that always just be sheer flukes? Like I don't know. Like in the council, there'll always be thieves that are trying to steal other people's money. Do you know what I mean? Like, but you need proper things in place to try and stop it.
Well, I have my views on that, but instead of me just taking over it, I'll ask Diane and Steve their response to it. But Steve Wraith and his magic hands have tweeted to this. Hello, lover boy. How's your cock comb going, eh? I worked out who it is. Anyway, so what do you think of what's just been said, Diane? And what could you add to it? Do you agree, or do you think there should be something else that we should be looking at?
Some sort of retraining and stuff. They need like a refocus on everything. And like, I still believe it should be from the top to the bottom, all vetted and sorted, got rid of if you got any past records of that. Any complaints against you, anything, get them out.
One thing I always remember about you, because and you spoke about it actually once, was, and it'd be interesting to know how you feel when you have to, or you'd have to walk into a police station and report something. I remember you said, because you were going through it at time on YouTube, and you said, don't think that a pushover and I'll just sit back and take anything like that, because you've got a gentle personality. Actually, you've got a kind, gentle personality.
Yeah, people think I'm just a dafty that comes on and dances, but there's more to us than that.
But that's what I learned. There's a hell of a lot more to you. You're very, very strong. So when you go into a police force with your experiences of, how you've been dealt with, what would you, when you walk in, imagine you're walking in now, how would you like to be approached, and how would you like to be dealt with as a woman? Because don't forget, they were accused of being misogynistic as well.
Be honest, I've been I've lost my faith in the police force, especially Northumbria, because of things that happened to me, and I tried to report them, and they made me feel like I was in the wrong and stuff. Like, obviously, I'm a survivor of domestic violence, was in 3 different violent relationships. And then the first partner I was with, I went to complain about him. There was nothing done. It was put down as domestic. It's the same with the kid's dad. He had us by the throat. I phoned the police. they were more interested in phone social services to get them involved with the children than actually doing anything to him. I had red marks and stuff. So now I've really lost my faith. I don't think I would go to the police if anything happened.
But the good thing is
anxiety about it now.
But exactly, people get anxious about it, and that's what I always said. It causes anxiety, and I know exactly what you're talking about. But also, this is why I say Louise Casey's report was so important. It's because it's vindicating the way people who do feel like the victims. Now, let's get this right. It's not only women, it's not only LGBTQI people, it's not only non-white people who can be treated like crap by police. White people can be, straight white people. Steve could be treated absolutely horrendously by the police, because I've said this before, the police can decide if they don't like someone, that's it, they're not going to get that service. They're not going to get it, and it's bloody hard to try and get them to get it. So it can happen to anyone. So Steve, what would you see as being what might change things, or might start an improvement?
I just genuinely think there should be a review nationally of the police. I think essentially that is the way forward. I think that the Met's clearly got bigger issues than some of the other forces, but Diane's already mentioned that she has, she's mentioned Northumbria Police there. That's obviously my jurisdiction where I live. But then you have other forces up and down the country, which I'm sure have issues and problems. So maybe an internal review and an external review. These things cost money. These things take time. They're not done overnight, but I think that's the way forward. And I think most forces would welcome it. But they would also welcome further officers on the beat. And they would also welcome, further investment into the police. But that's the problem we face as a country at the minute. We simply don't seem to have the money to give to the right places at the right time. We're not funding the NHS. The NHS and doctors are going out on strike. We're not paying our teachers what they deserve, because the demands on teachers are ridiculous now, and the cost of living is going up for everybody, and people are rightly asking for more money. It's the country at the moment is in a mess. It is in a mess, and I've said this on more than one occasion. I really don't like the country that I live in anymore. I'm disappointed in it. I see no way of changing it, because I genuinely feel that the election is now just a talking shop. It's about personalities. It's not about the parties anymore. It's if you like the way that somebody speaks and talks, they seem to get the part. We're slowly turning into America, and I just don't like it. I don't like where I live, and there will be anarchy on the street. You just need to look across Europe. The far right is on the rise in Europe, across certain countries, and when people disagree with things, in these countries now, people are getting angry. Look at what's happening in France. It is getting scary, Anne. Look at what
happened in Liverpool with the immigrants. The police wouldn't do anything, and they started rioting, didn't they? It's going to be like that.
I mean, that was literally that this whole thing with immigration has now become the Tories' way of, the Tories' way of trying to, build things for the next election. That's the plan. That they're now back. They're throwing everything behind the whole immigration thing. We're going to stop this, and we're going to go in hard on France, and we're going to do this, because they can see an election on the horizon, and they're thinking, yeah, that's how we got in last time.
Hello.
Not how can we make the country work.
What was that, Chrissie?
It's not how can we make the country work for everyone that's in it. It's like, how can we just stay in power? It's just a popularity competition.
Cormac Corner nails it there in the chat. The House of Commons is Jeremy Kyle with suits and ties. I mean, I think Banksy did a wonderful painting a few years back of the House of Commons with just loads of monkeys sitting there.
But they've always been like that.
Well, it is, isn't it?
No difference. Anyway, Kelsey's got a good one. This about the Met. The report says that the Met is 82% white and 71% male, not representative of the majority of Londoners. Now, I'll tell you now, this can be quite misleading, and I've heard this statistic thrown out that it's overtly male and white. That might not be the force's fault for that, because you'll find, and this is true, a lot of LGBTQI people and a lot of non-white people do not want to join the police. They've got no intention. Some do, some don't, because one, it can be cultural. It can be because the way you've been treated by the police that you don't want to go there. It can be cultural that because the police are seen as being institutionally racist, institutionally homophobic or whatever, you won't get no white people wanting particularly to work for them. And that's it. So it can be misleading. It might not be that they're 82% white and 71% male because they're not recruiting. They will be trying like mad to recruit. That's been going on for years from other, what they call diverse. Those people don't want to do it. A lot of them, they don't want to do it.
But that's another problem in itself, isn't it? It needs to be a better place to work. Do you know what I mean? People
but you see,
have job satisfaction to be able to stay in them sorts of jobs.
Well, look at what happened in America, right? This is that black American man who was killed by black police officers, and apparently that was because of white privilege. I don't know how to work that out. That force was over 50% non-white, and it's like, so it's not the stratification. Really, what needs to be looked at is how competent and good the police officers are. And yet you do need to encourage diversity, but not to the point of, well, you know, let's take them because we need them in here, because maybe you'll pick up that. I always said that's how I got into the police.
No, that's an amazing point. Let's not encourage diversity for the sake of encouraging it.
And
encourage. You've got to can do it.
There's plenty of people that are very competent at doing it, but it's just that it's not attractive, and that's it. It's not cool. Nowadays, it's getting worse now because it's just not cool to be in the police. I mean, what young person wants to be in the police? They just don't want
Which
to.
Which is ridiculous, because like one of my oldest friends, like I've known her since I was 3. She works for the police force now, and when I talk to her about it, I'm so jealous all the time. Like if I could do that job, like I would do that job. Like I just like.
What does she do?
She works on the murder investigation team.
Oh yeah, that's one where you can. That's a. God, let's say something now I shouldn't. That's the one where you get an officer was on the beat, right, doing their beat work. Then they get sent there, or they get sent to Socko, seeing a crime and all that. And you can guarantee you'll wait 6 months, then you'll see them waddling down the steps like that. Desk job. And they're like this, and you say, there we go, you got your desk job now. So they're not, it's worse when they're actually on the beat and on response. I think response is the worst. I used to work for rapid response, and that's the worst because the officers just can't sit down. It's a full go all the time. They can just be called out at any second. That's the most stressful one I imagine being. But anyway, let's get on to talking about. Yeah, when it first came out, see what you think of this. When it first came out, that report, I did a short video and I said the solution to it, I think, solution to actually ensuring that things don't go wrong in the future, or they always will go wrong, but try to stop going wrong, is that it's not just the Met you have to look at it. You have to look at its watchdog, the IOPC, which is so corrupt, it's unimaginably corrupt. Now, that starts off as the IPCC, which was set up by Blair because of by the Blair government because of the Stephen Lawrence murder and what went wrong there. Now, people get a shock when you tell them it's the police investigating the police, because the vast majority of people who are doing the casework there are police officers working on secondments from police forces, and they can be investigating their own force. And also, this is what shocks people as well. If you turn around and say, right, I want to know whether the person that's dealing with my case is a police officer, they won't tell you. They refuse to tell you that's a police officer. And also, there's one clause in it, which is another shocking one. I've always said this: if you want to know or you want to find out that there's corruption going on in any organization or institution, the people who will see it first are the people that are inside, not the public, the people that are inside. This watchdog has a rule, and this is what silenced me, that if you worked for a police force or you are working for a police force, your complaint, no matter how serious or grievous it is, it could be another weighing cousins on the way. Guess what? They can block us from being investigated. No reason, just blocked. And they do that to loads of people. So you've got a police watchdog that literally is more corrupt than the police forces that are investigating. And yet no one seems to address that. They did address it at one point in a Home Affairs Select Committee with Keith Vass, which was a joke, as I said at the time. I said, "You're kidding me, Keith Vass." And then we found out what Keith Vass was like, which I knew what he was like because I'd heard all about him. But of course, nothing changed. Big inquiry, nothing changed. Still exactly the same. So in my mind, you don't only look at the mess and restructure that the PSD, because the professional standard departments, what happens if there's a complaint about officer, it goes to the professional standards department. And this is where I'll explain quickly as an example of what happened to me and why I walked away from the Met Police, saying you are institutionally bigoted right through the system, and there's no point me dealing with you, and I wouldn't come to you again to report a complaint because you're bigotry. I went there to report the situation. I won't tell what it was. They were dealing with it. The officer didn't understand, not just one officer. I was passed from one officer, two officers, three officers. They didn't understand the basics of what I was saying to them. And one issue was they turned around and they didn't understand that hate speech is a crime. Now, hate speech is only a small part of this, but I said hate speech is a crime. You cannot decide, oh, well, the person might have said it because you did or said something to upset them. I said, that doesn't matter. Whatever I've said, I said, it's still a crime. I said, would you go out and tell someone that punched someone else in the face? Would you say to the victim when you said something to upset them? I said, no, you wouldn't.
Exactly.
So I said, why are you saying that hate speech is understandable, basically? In circumstances, said no matter the circumstances, it's a crime. It's not acceptable. So they couldn't get it. They messed the whole case up. I went to the PSD not to complain, and I made that completely offset. I don't want to get these officers in trouble, but I'm saying you've got a serious problem throughout the whole section. I said I've been through loads of them, and I said none of them can grasp the basics. They don't understand it. So anyway, what I got back from the PSD was shocking. Absolutely shocking. We are not bigoted in any way. There's no institutional bigotry here. This organisation says we're wonderful. Didn't even address what had happened or what it said. Just gave me this bump about how they got this award, that award. And then Louise Casey happens, and like a little chipmunk with his cheeks like that, I ran back onto my computer, got hold of the PSD woman and said, here we are, do you want to read this? I was right. You are institutionally bigoted. And I said, I was right. And you're part of that problem because the PSDs are litigation limitation departments. They're not interested in fairness. They're interested in making sure that you can't sue the force and get money out of the force. The IOPC you're supposed to go to if they mess it up, the PSD, and yet they're doing exactly the same thing. So until those two do it, you're not going to source it. You're never going to get it right. But what I'll start doing, because I'm doing too much talking, that's normal. So
do you think that if that happened to you now, like I understand the results of it have proved your case right, do you think that is as someone would be as non-understanding now if you put that same complaint in?
That was only just over a year ago.
Oh, was it? Sorry,
yeah. Well, nothing would change. Oh, the Met. This is what I'm saying. It's going to be a long time. I'll be well dead. We'll all be well dead before there's any chance of the Met Police being rooted out. Because as you said, Chris, you said one thing. You'd have to disband the whole system. You'd have to disband the IOPC, crash them down, and build from base up. But the problem then you have is you can't escape it. You do need officers with experience. And because don't forget, it's not just about being nice or treating diverse people nicely. It's also stopping very serious crimes as well. So you have to, that takes officers with experience, years of experience. So disbanding them isn't an option. But what you'd have to do, you'd have to say, well, we're going to bring the full book of the law down on you. And if, as what happened with Cousins and what happened with Carrick, the people who knew about it and ignored it should be serving prison sentences as well, because they actually perverted the course of justice by doing what they did.
I contemplate, right, that from listening now to you, because I don't know a lot about it. I know that article really in my workplace, or the environment I've worked in over the years. I contemplate that as society has developed, the police force hasn't developed as fast as it should have. Do you know what I mean? Like, some views from many years ago are very different to the way society is now. Like the difference in views with the LGBTQ community as they've come on over the years has massively changed, and it's as if the police force hasn't changed as fast as it needs to.
Yeah, there's something definitely to be said about that. They're always playing catch up, and also this is another thing that you've got to remember. It's a very disciplined, very hard, and has to be highly disciplined structure as well. And this is another dichotomy that you've got, which I used to say when they go on about misogyny and tough male officers, you know, big tough fellas. The irony is, and this is what you can't get away with, you need tough police officers to be able to bring down tough criminals.
Yeah.
You need them. So you do need those tough types, but you need to also control them and not let them go, go AWOL. But you have to have them. It's no point having all nice, kind police officers. Sometimes you need a police officer to get someone in an arm lock, get them down to the ground and keep them there. And the only way you're going to do that is with an officer that's strong. And usually you find that officers like that work out and all that, they are going to be misogynistic. They are going to, I'm not painting all the same, I'm not doing that, but they tend to be very macho. So it's an impossible situation, really. So anyway, Steve, have you got any thoughts on the IOPC or anything like that and how you go forward with it?
I just generally think that, like I said before, let's have some clarity across the board. Let's review the police, the police authorities up and down the country. Mm-hmm. Statistics are often misleading, as you've already alluded to, and when you read a newspaper article, it can be a cross section of a certain demographic, and that can be misleading. So don't believe everything you read in the paper is what I would say. I mean, I saw another report where they were talking about stop and search in London and getting back to the Met Police. Like a higher number of ethnic minorities were pulled over for stop and search, as opposed to a white person being pulled over. And we've seen these cases which have been brought up about kids being searched. I saw somebody on Good Morning Britain this week who had been a victim of a search as a minor. I think at the time he was 16, which is still a child in the UK, and he was traumatized from it still to this day about that. So I just think, generally speaking, that there needs to be a major overhaul, and that starts at the top. It starts with the government. It starts with the Home Office, and then working your way through and finding out what the the highs and the lows are. And as I say, it has to be internal as well as external. It's all very well the police looking at themselves, but there needs to be maybe an independent inquiry into various, into the various forces and seeing what we can do for the better. And it's not something that's done overnight. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's going to take a long time. Have you got any thoughts, Diane?
No, not really.
Because this is the thing. I think what it is. Well, what's the call say?
I mean, I agree with what Steve's saying. It needs, from the government and everything, needs a big revamp, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, it needs. What needs done? It needs, I say, and this is where it seems like an impossible task. There's so much, and also the public have to be willing to bring the police along with them, because also there's stupid things that go on. That's the most annoying thing that wastes police time a lot of the time. Majority of cases are wasting police time. People are just not behaving themselves. But, you know, I think what it is also, and this goes back to the recruitment, I said, Chrissie, before, the recruiting is a problem because people know, the public know what the police are like. They don't. Louise Casey's report is just saying what most people knew before, but Carmen's made a good point here. Institutional misogyny, racism, homophobia in the Met Police. But is it just the police? Most building sites, factories, are they not the same? Yeah, the police should be held to a high standard. Well, they have to be, because they're supposed to police the public. And this is it. So they can't hold bigoted views. And an interesting one, which I'll run by you all very quickly to see what you think of this. There was a training session I went to, and they asked the question, if, and I'll tell you what I said after I've asked your opinion. They said, if there's a Christian officer and there's a gay officer working in the same unit, is there, and this Christian officer is devout to the Bible and all this, living by every word of it, should we ask the gay person if they wouldn't mind working somewhere else? Now, what would your response be to that if you were asked that question like we were?
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age, you're not going to be happy about that, are you? You've got to be inclusive, not exclusive, and that's the way we are in this world. If you were made to feel inferior in your workplace, that's wrong. You know, and that should never be the case, whether it's your race, whether it's your a disability. It's the way of the world now, and that's and things have changed for the better in that respect. It shocked me. It really has shocked me to hear the state of the Metropolitan Police, because that's what we're talking about tonight. It's really shocked me to hear how low the standards have become. And again, for me, the fault isn't necessarily with those people who are in charge now, but it's the predecessors, the people who were in charge prior to the person coming in the main job. They're just the one who has to shovel all the crap up now, and try and sort it out. And literally, they're the ones who are having to pay their dues for succession of failure over decades. And it takes that time to go. We've gone from Ben cops and brown envelopes, in the 60s and 70s, and then the supergrass is coming in and changing everything. And now we seem to be going, probably since the mid 70s and early 80s, we've now been on this nosedive, and it's sad that it hasn't been picked up earlier. But that's because in society in the 70s and 80s, predominantly, there was a lot of racism on the street. People were selling the National Front news on the court outside football stadiums up and down the country, and gay people weren't tolerated; they were beaten up. And that's unfortunately the world we lived in back in those days. Things have changed. Things have changed now to a degree, but it's not. That's what I mean. This, the world's a horrible place, Anne. It's not a nice place. Life's something to get through, really, and it should be something to enjoy. But because humans at the end of the day, and this is getting quite deep, but humans have destroyed the earth, continue to do so, and I feel sorry for my children and for their children, moving forward.
I will link back to Karma's point of what Steve's saying there, is that police should be held to a higher standard. Do you know what I mean? Like they should have come, their policies and procedures on racism and all them sorts of things should have moved faster. Like, do you know what I mean? The opinions in football have moved faster than the police force. Do you know what I mean? And the police should be held to a higher standard. They should have moved forward faster than they have. They're moving slower than everybody, which is wrong. Like, as Karma said, they should be held to a higher standard. They're the ones enforcing the laws of the land, making sure that. So, what's your view on that? If you were asked that question about a Christian
and a gay officer, what would you respond if it was asked to you?
To me personally, I think you should respect each other as you are and just embrace each other's differences. There's no need for hate and stuff. That's just the way I am.
I think most people like what I said. Remember when I turned around and it got a few gasps? Not for everyone, but some it did. I turned around and said, what I'd do is I'd take the Christian officer into a room and say, I think you better resign and leave because you have got me worried now how you're dealing with LGBTQI people on the street in your job. If you cannot work alongside a gay colleague, do you want to go somewhere where you can say you don't want to work with a gay person? And that got like, how can you say that? Religious freedom? I said, I don't care about your religious freedom. I said, you're not in the right job. If you want to be a Christian and live by the rules that sternly, that you won't work with someone that's from the LGBTQI communities, I said, you need to go and find a job somewhere else, because I'd be worried what the hell you're doing when you're dealing with LGBTQI people. Or if you say, I'm not dealing with that member of the public, they're gay. And it's like, but that's what they do. But that was actually a real scenario in the Merseyside Police. But they have moved on from that. I doubt very much they'd ever get away with anyone saying that now in the Merseyside Police. But,
and I've got family duties now, I'm afraid, so I've got to cut off. But I've thoroughly enjoyed the chat. Thanks.
For brilliant, Steve. Thanks for your input. So you take care, Steve, and I'll be rounding it up.
And
now.
nice to meet you, but nice to see you again, Chrissie and Diane. Nice to have a chat with you as well. But Anne, thanks for having us on. Take
brilliant.
care.
Thanks again, Steve. Thank you.
Good night.
But anyway, so what I'll do is,
I do think that that it's everyone should just not accept everyone. It's each to their own. Do you know what I mean? As long as you're not hating someone else and you're not trying to inflict your views upon somebody else, why can't you just get on with your life? Do you know what I mean? Like a simple example. I don't like the color red, but I'm not having a go at you because you've got red headphones on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't hurt me and it doesn't affect me in any way, shape, or form. So why can't you just get on with your life? Like.
That's it. What it is, it just showed, because there was, especially Merseyside Police, there was a huge that's what got me hated as well, because we had a thing called River Force suddenly appeared overnight, and a force passed it, and I just couldn't, you know what I'm like. So I said, what's going on here? I said, why have we got this River Force? I said, why have we got a force pastor? I said, this isn't a religious organisation. Why have we got a force pastor? I said, where's your force in, man? I said, where's your force Wiccan? I said, where's the others? What it was, the top or the senior officers were all Christians, born again Christians. And so they wanted to make it like a Christian force. And I think this appeared in the Liverpool Echo. I walked into this meeting this day when they were having it. They were all, all this business. And so I walked in there and I came out and I said, right, I'm going to stop this. I said, either this becomes multi-faith or it's going. And I did get rid of it. They had to make it multi-faith, which they were going mad about, because things were being said by the fella who was running it, which alarmed me as well. He said, this has happened, River Force, because God has put 3 officers in a senior position. I said, oh, no, like hell, no, this isn't going to happen. I said, officers think that God has put them there specially. I said, it's not going to happen. I said, this is not the place for it. And you'd walk in right down, and you know, in the police stations, you'd go to the bottom of the drawer before you go out the door to meet the public, and you'd open it up and there'd be loads of Gideon's New Testaments in the bottom to hand out to the public. I got the whole lot of them, binned them. I got, they had posters for this event that was going on in the Liverpool Echo. I got them, trashed them. They daren't have done anything to me, because I said, it wasn't that I was hating on Christianity. I said, no. I said, this is wrong unless it's providing for everyone. And I said, right, I want to invite a Wiccan in, a Wiccan priest or priestess for the Wiccans in the force. That was denied, and so it had to become multi-faith then. So yeah, I can sometimes wonder why Chrissie Diane, they didn't like me in the force. The senior officers, for some reason they didn't like. I remember that walking out to the skip with all the posts, and the officers were just looking at me with open mouths, and I said, No, not until it's multi-faith. I said, not having this nonsense. Oh, you get the sack. I said, see if I do. They never even pulled me for it. They did. They did pull me on. It would have caused an absolute scandal. But anyway, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start winding up now. But it's lovely to have, you'll come on another one, won't you, Diane and Chrissie?
Yeah.
Craig's making me tea, and he lives a 20-minute drive away from mine. He's making pie.
Is he making? I saw him in the chat before. Are you still there? I thought that it was this funny one.
I've just sent him a picture of it and said that I think it's him, and that he's just trolling with.
But it isn't. I know it is. I know it is because he mentioned Whitey Creature, and Craig wouldn't know who Whitey Creature was, so I know who it is now. I know who it is. I know definitely who it is.
Well, Craig was busy with his podcast tonight, wasn't he? So.
Yeah, here we are. Tell people who he's interviewing.
Craig's interviewed Mickey Terrell tonight for his podcast. I'm not sure when it comes out, but he was doing that tonight. That's why he wasn't in the chat trolling with. And then he came back, said hello, and then went to make pie because he's starving.
So anyway, don't forget Mick Terrell. Video Craig's got him. Get him for me to interview him because, as we all know, my viewers, my listeners, that if a tough man wants to seem cool, he's got to talk to someone that's LGBTQI. So if he comes on and speaks to me, he'll be officially cool and with it. So Mick Terrell's going to be on my list next. God, I'll terrify him, won't he? He's a quiet girl, and Mick Terrell will be like, what the hell is this? But anyway, so thank you, Chrissie, for joining me. Thank you, Diane. And we'll have another little chat sometime because it's been very important. So thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you all. Yeah. Bye-bye for now, darlings. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for having us. Bye.
Oh, that's great. So end my broadcast. I nearly forget then.